From Washington, D.C., this is The Tightrope. I'm your host, Dan Smolen. Our mission on this podcast is to help you realize your dreams of doing meaningful work. Here you'll meet and be inspired by amazing people who overcame great odds. You'll discover what sparked them, how they explored work opportunities, the strategies that they employed to ensure career success, and the actions that they boldly took to make it all happen. You'll also meet esteemed and nationally recognized thought leaders who are helping people like you to develop work skill, experience, and leadership, and seize opportunity from a changing world so that your beautiful work dreams turn into reality. Together, let's turn work meaningful, for meaningful work is the future of work. Today on the Tightrope Podcast, we present another of our Between the Seasons episodes, during which we will take a step or two back from the style and format of our seasonal episodes, but also to explain to you the why of what we do. We will get current with the issues that affect people in the workforce seeking meaningful work, but also to shine a light on the work that we do on the Tightrope Podcast to make your journey to meaningful work both rewarding and successful. Coming up, we revisit our friend Nicole Rousseau, an American workforce thought leader who is affectionately known as the Queen of the Millennials. She's thinking a lot these days about helping to establish the healing influences of nurturing as a workforce best practice. But before we get to our interview with Nicole, we want to thank you for being a part of the Tightrope. We hope that you like the guests that we have featured and appreciate all the changes that we have made to our format to make your podcast experience a pleasurable yet informative one. One area where we could really use your help is in building our audience. If you enjoy the Tightrope, we ask that you tell 5 friends about us. They can subscribe to us by keywording the Tightrope Podcast wherever they get podcasts. Our best promotional vehicle is you, and we really appreciate all that you do and continue to do to help us build our listenership. Thank you. We have reached the end of January 2020, and this week we are processing a lot of difficult news. Not only the impeachment trial in the U.S. Senate, but now the sudden passing of Los Angeles Lakers legend Kobe Bryant. He died in a helicopter crash this past Sunday. Kobe was just 41 years old. Difficult news like this is hard to bear. It makes us struggle to make sense of the world in which we live, but also to reconcile how a young life lived so brilliantly could end so suddenly. On the Tightrope Podcast, we help people transition to second, third, maybe fourth acts in their careers, doing work that is profound, protects the planet, helps people and communities, and is fun to do. It is clear to us that Kobe Bryant was well on his way to establishing a brilliant and meaningful second act. Sadly, we will never get to see his tightrope walk. Life is so short, and that reminds us that every day we need to be deliberate in our quest to do well, but also to do good so that the world, our neighbors, and lots of people that we may never meet still benefit from our noble mission. Godspeed, Kobe. In your short life, you made the world a better place. Our challenge on the Tightrope Podcast is to help people find and do meaningful work, but we also hope to poke the bear, to get thought leaders in business, academia, and public service to rethink the role of work in society so that people doing it are productive, earn a good living, and most of all, live their dreams. So thank you all for walking the tightrope with us in 2020 and in the years to follow. Please let us know what you think of our podcast, offer up some story ideas and potential guests, or just say hello. Send us a tweet to @DanSmolen or pop us an email at info@DanSmolen. We look forward to hearing from you. Here now, our conversation with the Queen of the Millennials, Nicole Rousseau. We spoke to her in January 2020 over Skype from her family home in Western Massachusetts. So Nicole Rousseau, welcome back to the Tightrope.
Thank you.
We had you on in the fall of 2019, and I'm wondering, before we dig into today's topic, what the response has been to your early appearance on the Tightrope.
People loved it. They liked listening to about my story and then how I love millennials. I think it gave them a little light on the whole situation. But they really are a good force. You know, they're the biggest cohort right now. We've talked about that.
Right.
So it's either you work with them or you don't. And they're bringing a lot of good things. Like, you know, just talking about a job recently, and it was about we don't have exact days for vacation. Some of that stuff comes from millennials.
Right.
They're pushing those things. Like, okay, I don't want to sit in a job all day. I want to have some freedom. I want to do things. I want to go on vacations, sabbatical, whatever. They're bringing all that stuff back, and I feel like it's changing. You know, Gen X is just, again, shut up and sit down. Don't ask for anything. Just, this is how it is. This is your salary. Every year you get 2% more, and you only have 7 vacations, and they're really changing things. So when things are changing like this for the better, we can, you know, say the millennials are doing that because they're ready to walk away. You know, that's so brave. Like, I wish I had that braveness.
Wow.
If it doesn't working, I walk away. And that's what's changing in corporations. And we're here about talking about nurturing. So I hope we can talk about that in corporations and in our lives.
Well, I'll tell you one thing they are doing is they're starting to buy homes.
Yes.
Big spike in home sales last month, so that would have been December 2019. Interestingly enough, it isn't for the homes that have the big upgrades. You know, some starter homes have the granite countertops. Millennials aren't necessarily going for the big luxury items. They're going for good homes, good function.
Yeah, they're practical.
Yeah.
Very practical. Because, again, their parents overbought on those houses, you know, during the crisis, and they lost their house. So they're like, okay, let's do it the old way. Let's buy one house, a small house, and then you move on to another one, A lot of them are in New Jersey because they can. I've had, like, my millennials that I talk to, they have houses in Jersey. It's a ride to go in, but it's a nice house and practical. Also, Colorado. A lot of them are going to Colorado, Boulder especially. Austin, Texas is another place. So a lot of my millennials, they either are living there or they bought a house there and they're using it as like something to make money. So they are, like, years ago they were saying they didn't want to have houses because of what they went through. But now that they're making money, they realize, like, they want to invest. And they're doing it very in a good way that is very safe and they can feel comfortable.
Right. Well, I think probably Gen X, and I know my cohort, the late baby boomers, we tended to buy above our pay grade. And
right, because that was what you were told. Like, oh, you're going to get a higher salary. It might be tight now, but you'll get more money, and then it'll be comfortable. That was the total line that they said to us.
Yeah.
And then that's not true. Good for the baby boomers. They had a good ride. Like, we had, a lot of crises. But yeah, that was the thing. Like, buy it a little more over what you want because you'll grow into it. You'll get more money, and that did not happen. So you learn. I don't really know what we learned.
Indeed. So let's talk about the topic today, which is nurturing. And you believe that there is an opportunity to instill a nurturing culture in the American workplace. And I wanted to know, first off, why is that?
I think this just the burnout and people, like, I always talk about sitting in their seat for like 9 hours and going on the train. This is in New York, another hour, 2 hours and sitting down. It's very unhealthy. And I think people are recognizing that. And millennials are, like, not having it. They want to have their work and their well-being too. And I'm all for that.
Oh, they want it all enmeshed at one time. Yeah.
it's just the way they work. Like, baby boomers or Gen X, we do this, and then after work we do that. They mix it all up, like a mix up. Like, I work, I go to the gym. I work, I go to smoothie. I work, I take a vacation. It's more natural instead of this like old way, like, oh, you have to wait and you'll have your vacation next year. Or, people say that, oh, I have planned to go to Greece next year. Like, why not now? That's kind of how they are. Like, they want things now. We know that. And they don't wait. They want experiences right away. They want to feel good. They want to feel happy. And if they're happy and they feel good, they'll stay with the company. So the companies are like leaning into their ideas. I'm glad, because if I get a job, like, I would love that. I would love to have unlimited vacation, food all day, people coming in and talking to you and feed your mind. Like, that's what's coming. So I'm all in. Like, I think it's great.
My generation, and me in particular, I'm, for a lack of a better term, a recovering workaholic who, in my heyday, worked on average 60 hours a week, which means some weeks,
oh my,
especially when invoices had to be cut, it probably got closer to 80. I worked often on Sundays. Sometimes I worked on Saturdays, although I tried not to. And the idea of nurturing never entered my mind because my day was so compartmentalized. And unfortunately, so much of my week was in the office that I can't even think back and describe to you what kind of nurturing that I got. Because, on the weekends,
sounds like zero.
I'm exhausted. My wife is working hard at her job too. And we'd collapse, maybe go out to see a movie, not much else. So when, time came around for vacation, I can tell you, Nicole, I often put it off to the point where HR is calling me up in the first week of the new year and saying, you need to go on vacation. And I'm like, but I'm busy.
How did that happen? You just committed, or you didn't feel you could stop, or you felt scared you'd get laid off? Like, why did you, not nurture yourself, I say, with a vacation?
Well,
it was there for you.
Of course. But that was my journey, and I wasn't at the point of enlightenment yet. I was in an advertising business. This is something I really wanted to do. I was working with big clients. I had big responsibilities. I thought that this is what one does to be a success, is to be steeled in the spine and stoic, and you just put your nose to the grindstone and you do it and you don't complain. When I did complain, you got brushback. The culture, I think, has changed now, and I'm glad for that. It didn't make me a better person. If anything, it probably wrecked my creativity and my health. I was suffering chronic lower back pain. Of those 80-hour weeks, I had to carve out a couple hours for the chiropractor to snap me back into shape every week. I was treating symptoms.
Were you driving in a car too, or like a train, or like, so that was longer? So 8 hours in the corporate, and then you had to drive somewhere even?
Oh.
What was the total time that you were sitting and not being at home?
I wish I was on the train. 10? That job was in the woods of Greenwich, Connecticut. I would take the Merritt Parkway the entire length from Greenwich to Milford, where I lived. Mm-hmm. Some days the morning commute would last an hour and a half, depending upon when you hit it.
Wow.
I would be out of the house by 6 sometimes, just so that I didn't get stuck in traffic. And, looking back at that, I realized it was total insanity. That somehow I got in my head that's the way it had to be.
Well, people said that to us. Work is work. Work should be hard. You have to work. Oh, you have to stay late. You're afraid you get laid off. Like, that was the message.
Work hard. I want to see flames coming out of your backside. Work hard.
Work hard and you'll move ahead. No, that's those are all the things they told us. And we did it, and it didn't really work out that way.
It didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Go ahead.
It didn't change for me until I became a recruiter. And I remember saying to my mother, I'm done with working hard. I want to work smart. And she looked at me and said, I don't understand what that means, work smart. Well, what work smart meant was, of course I'm going to work hard, but work hard isn't measured with a yardstick. It's measured by experience. So if I'm placing candidates and I'm having a good week, maybe I take Friday off, which I did a lot. Or I dropped what I was doing to go shopping for the family groceries or to spend time with my daughter, who was very young at the time when I was in the midst of my recruiting career. I went through the evolution, but you know what? I don't think I would be at the point now of being able to say, no, don't do what I did back 30 some odd years ago, because that'll kill you. If I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't have the authority to say do otherwise.
Right. What would you say for just what you talked about? How would you would like to see in life and corporations, or either the things that they do or the outcome of it or the feelings of it? Like what do you think? I mean, I have some ideas, but what are some ideas that you have?
Well, I think some of them are starting to take root. This notion that we have to work an 8-hour day or more 5 days a week, I think is a relic of history. We got to get rid of it. For the very reason I just mentioned to you, I'm going to work smarter. If somebody listening to this podcast can get into a situation and the work becomes more meaningful because they can control their day better. When I say control, what I mean is enjoy it more and mesh it with all types of experiences beyond work. Maybe it's taking a couple hours off to see your children play soccer, or stealing away to have lunch with your significant other, or just dropping everything and getting an Airbnb on the island of Skiathos in Greece for 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
Because when you do that, it's like, the high tide lifts all boats. Everything gets better. Your creativity is better. I think you're more mindful. At least I would hope so. You're more sensitive to the world and your surroundings. And you're probably easier to get along with.
Yeah, because you're rested, you're happy, you're calm. Like you're nurtured, as we're talking about.
When I was thinking about talking to you about this episode, I was trying to understand how a veteran hiring manager would incorporate the best practices of workplace nurturing into their day, especially if it's a foreign concept to them. Maybe they were part of that cohort like you were in, or perhaps I was in, which was nurturing is for little kids watching Barney on TV or Sesame Street. We're not children's public television. We're a workplace. It's supposed to be hard. So how do you get that person to realign their consciousness around something that sounds a little new agey, but actually is going to improve their headcounts, outputs, quality of work, and most importantly, quality of experience?
Well, that's very analytical. So let's talk about...
I've had my coffee.
Non-analytical. So, I mean, it all has to change. If I could do a magic wand, is that I think happy employers will work better. They will more respect their manager. They will like their manager, as if they can give them just a little bit of time to rest and to get nurtured. So the whole thing was sit in your seat, so I can see you there. Like if something comes up, I know you're in your seat and we can do something.
Right.
Now we have things like texting and mobiles, and we can do work virtually. Like we're you can catch us all the time. Like if someone text to me, I answer right away, or within 10 minutes, or within 30 minutes. So it's very easy to reach people.
Right.
So know more about that. Sitting in your seat. So if something comes up, oh, here you are, like this new thing came up. You can reach other people, whether elsewhere. Also, the idea of it's like, I'll think of the word, to be there from 8 to 6 is not like, you don't get a prize for that. Like, that's what this used to do. Is like, I came in early and I stayed late. That's so great. That doesn't help. That doesn't help you advance in your career. It doesn't help people. It doesn't help yourself. It doesn't help your family. Like, so we got to look at work as work. It's different than play, but we got to do it in a more healthy way. Like I've seen in corporations, I've seen too many people that were sick. I saw people who couldn't be with their parents when they were dying. Like that is really terrible. Yeah, they didn't want to stay. They were one person. She was with her father, and he was sick, and she thought he's going to be fine. It looks like he's going up. Went home, went back to work, and then found out that he died. So she wasn't there for that moment, and because she was worried about, I might lose my job, or my boss might be, look down on me, or I have to finish the thing. That's kind of sad. How that interrupts like what's real in our life is people and our family and emotions and nurturing, and it's just I think it's really changing that we can work and be with people. We can work and have experiences. I don't know who's going to architect this, but it's coming. I mean, that's what's happening. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. So I'm listening to you describe all this, and the person who wasn't there when their parent passed away. That's something that stays with you the rest of your days, that regret. Mm-hmm. And you can't erase it, and you can't just hit the reset button and show up at work after your bereavement period and say, oh, everything's fine, back to work.
Right, yeah.
We're sentient beings. I don't think we operate that way. And if we're in a terribly high stress environment, it almost never happens. We can't reset. It's all very interesting. And I do agree with you. I think we talked about this in the, before we hit the record button. There's a lot of kind of discordant energy going on right now. And I don't mean because everybody's watching the impeachment proceedings, because I know they're not. But that stuff is out there. That discordance is out there. And what it does, I think, and I'm not a doctor, but I know this enough from my own personal experience, is that when you have that kind of discordance around you, and if you are a very sensitive person like you and I both are, it goes to your autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight. It kicks out a lot of adrenaline. Adrenaline is good for short bursts of energy, like when the saber-toothed tiger suddenly appears and you run like hell to get out of his path. But the body's not designed to deal with that ongoing.
No, it's a short thing to get you away from the tiger, but not all day, all week. I agree.
So I'm hopeful that really good people managers are recognizing that the people that they work with or who work for them are not just human capital, but they are talent. They are people that need to be nurtured, because in a company, especially a service company, that's your gold. It's your people.
We need nurture to thrive. And what you just talked about reminded, this is I had a psychology degree, so this is going to come up.
Right.
Do you remember the failure to thrive? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
It was about babies,
yes.
Babies that were probably adopted out, and they took care of them for their needs like food and stuff like that.
Right.
But they didn't nurture them. I think they were too busy, or they didn't understand that this was needed. They didn't touch them. They didn't hold them. They didn't sing to them, or whatever you do to babies. And they found out that the babies died. They had food, they had water. That's what they thought was the most important, but they were missing the nurturing, the touching, the singing to them, the empathy, whatever. And connection is pleasurable. It feels really good, even as an adult, as a baby. And it keeps you going on, like to have this connection and this love and compassion and necessity and humanity. So that shows if we don't have time off or nurturing or calm our bodies down, like we're in a place like you could, I don't want to say die, but die slowly. That's all I could say. I'm reminded about those babies when you were talking about that. That's a research out there.
Oh, and I'm thinking about all those kids down on the border who are being separated or have been separated by their parents and are, I remember enough from developmental psychology courses in college that, the nurturing aspect is critical. It helps people thrive when they're older.
Yeah, I mean, if it's for babies, it's for our whole life, for children, for your sports, yourself, anything that you can do to nurture yourself. And also nurturing yourself. That's one thing we should talk about. Nurturing is just not about someone else. We've got to watch our wellness, our things. Like, what do you do to make yourself feel good, nurturing? What do you do?
One of the things I think we're trying to learn now is, unless I'm imagining things, I think you used the word tactile. I mean, the touch aspect of nurturing. When I got into the work world, a preeminent voice in nurturing was this guy named Leo Biscaglia. He's long gone. And Leo was the huggiest white man you ever met. I mean, he was all about hugging. And now people would probably look at him with caution.
Crazy.
We live in the Me Too moment now, which is good. I mean, it's fleshing out.
You have to ask, can I hug? We have to say it now. Can I hug you? Yes. Okay, hug you. That's how it works now.
Right.
Go ahead.
There's the element of consent, and you just can't act on your impulses the way that Leo did. At least I think Leo did. And I thought about that because in December, I spoke at my alma mater, Ithaca College, at a leadership conference. And what struck me, Nicole, was how the students there were very respectful. They were listening, but they were very cautious around each other, as if I don't know you and I don't know what your rules for consent are, nor do you know what mine are. So we've got to figure that part out and make it very vocal so that people who don't like to be touched communicate that in a way that others respect. But on the other hand, don't disincentivize the sensitive type who needs to be hugged every once in a while, with their buds or their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. So maybe
we should make some shirts. That's what when we were talking, I'm seeing this visual that we have a shirt. Like, you can hug me, you can shake my hand, you can just, it's kind of funny, but to write it out, like what you can do.
Well,
you can say I look pretty. You could say, like, a lot of people are sensitive. Like, I saw someone said you look very pretty, and she felt like not happy about it. I'm like, but you did your hair and your makeup, and you look great, and so keep going, because this is something we've been talking about.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
I'm especially conscious of it. My daughter is a first-year college student. And
how old is she? Like, what's her age?
She'll be 19 at the end of June. And she's a very touchy, emotional person. It's the way we raised her.
Nice.
But her modality is the modality of every other student there, which is respectful distance. I don't know you. You don't know my thing. I don't know your thing until we have a discussion about consent. We operate very cordially, and we don't invade each other's personal space. And what I noticed about it, there's a couple of things. Her generation is very focused on world events. I know my daughter is working really hard in school, a lot harder than her old man did 40 years ago.
Wow.
But the flip of that is, as hard as she's working, she's not surrounded by the kind of tactile, emotional support systems that I felt that I had. And again, this all has to be viewed in the lens of the changing zeitgeist around consent, which is very, very important. But we also have to, like you're describing, find a way to achieve the nurturing aspects in this new dynamic. We have to figure that out because
we won't thrive.
Exactly. It like the little kids who the babies who in their early development were deprived of tactile nourishment.
And they died. Mm-hmm. What I was thinking about when you were talking is like, it's not tactile, but I believe that like teaching, training, coaching, mentoring, meditation, classes on well-being is a way of nurturing. Like, I didn't realize that until someone coached me and they were asking questions about me. It was over the phone, so they weren't touching me, like nurturing. I like nurturing. Yeah. But just asking questions about me and learning about me and asking me to talk about myself and figure out things felt really like nurturing for me. And when I do it now too, also teaching, training, coaching, mentoring, they feel nurtured. So it's not tactile, but they feel loved. People feel loved when coaching. The coaching is, the open questions. So I'm asking all these questions, and I'm not, training them. They bring out all this stuff about themselves, and they love people to ask them questions about themselves, about their what. People feel really loved during coaching and also in training. Like at the end, they're clapping their hands, we're having fun, we have full expression, because that's what I do. I do public speaking in schools. Mm-hmm. So they start out very quiet, and by the end, they're like out of their seats and dancing or playing songs and doing the moonwalk. I have a video of that, and they feel loved. And also with my kids, when I did with the end of the semester, I told them, I will miss you guys, and you guys have a choice. You can either just wave to me, I said you could, because it was the last day. You can wave your hand to me, you can hug me, you can tap me on my head. Like, I just told them, like, I did that for them. Like, they can do it, because in the school they were like, watch about that, touching people. Right. So I gave them a choice. You can tap my head, you can just wave, you can give me a high five. That was the other one. You can give me a hug. I gave them that chance, and I just stood there at the back of the room, and most of them hugged me. Yeah. And some of them were funny. One did on the head, and we did a high five. But I thought about it for a long time. Like, I love these kids. We're like all connected. We had such a great semester. It kind of feels weird to just say bye and why, like, because they, we really connected. So I gave them those options, and most of them gave me a hug. But it was my consent and their consent. It was weird, but it worked. Okay, but you just provided an opportunity for every hiring manager listening to this, which is, you bring somebody on board, or maybe several people on board, and as part of the onboarding, onboarding is usually about the work. How do you do the work well? Where's this department? Where's that department? How do I get projects to their completion? Very metric. That's stuff of the head. The stuff of the heart, I think, is harder to onboard, but there is an opportunity to do it, whereby you discuss, how do we enable a culture of nurturing in this department? One thing, let's talk about. Let's set down some ground rules for consent. You can ask somebody, may I hug you? May I tap you on the shoulder? May I look you in the eye intently? I'm laughing about this, but I think this generation expects that, and we should give it to them. Yes. But I don't know that a lot of hiring managers are doing that. What do you think? Well, it's kind of weird in corporation. It must feel weird. Like in a school, and when it was very experienced, like public speaking, a lot of expression, it felt right, and it was the end of the semester. At the beginning, I mean, this is interesting. You can say maybe you tell them like, what would you, if you did something really well, like, what would you want? Would you want more money? Would you want more vacation? Would you want time off? I don't know. We have to give them options because not everyone's all the same.
I love this. I love this. I love what you're saying right now. This is great because
give them options. Like you get Monday off, or I don't know. You can work on Saturdays. I don't know. Like, give people options because people need options, and people have different backgrounds of what's going on. You never know what's going on in someone's background. You don't even have to ask them. But if you give them options, like the ones that just wanted to, tap my hand, I didn't overthink it, but I was like, maybe that's not comfortable for them to have a hug. Yeah. And I'm glad that I said that. And then some of them like almost knocked me over with hugs.
Yeah, because they really wanted it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were shocked. Like, I mean, it took a second. I said the thing, and they came right over, and it really worked. So we've got to have options. I mean, I'm sure people listening to this have been like, why do we have to have these options? But that's what's working. You got to do what's working, even though it seems odd, because we're changing. Things are changing.
I worked in the advertising business for a good portion of my career. As I've often described it, it's the land of the young and stupid because, you got to be young and stupid sometimes to get into advertising. It can be toxic. It can be hard on your nerves and most often not very nurturing. And God knows I had the bag back and the stomach cramps to prove it out over my career because the stress really got to me and I didn't have the right tools. And
there's no offer for that. They'd be like, oh, okay, well, wear a diaper.
Yeah, like exactly.
Very rude during those times. Super rude.
If I did something well, it was just assumed that I would be rewarded monetarily, which is great. I was making a lot of money as a young guy, but I was never really given the choice. And I always thought that was my experience until the TV show Mad Men came along. And the character Peggy had written this amazing copy for a brilliant advertising campaign. And her boss, Don Draper, took all the credit for it in the client pitch meeting. And she looked at him and said, "You never thanked me." And he barks back, "That's what the money is for." And that was so 1950s, 60s, 70s, even 1980s advertising business. People were not given agency in the agency for their beneficial outputs. Oftentimes, and you really kind of keyed into this, Nicole, a simple thank you, a simple, "I am so proud of you. You overcame so much hardship on this project and you knocked it out of the park and you blew out our numbers. Oh my God, this is great." What I think often happens.
Acknowledgement.
Exactly.
Is a big deal.
Yeah.
Acknowledgement.
And sometimes that's worth more than money.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. You can see people's face. Like they smile, they blush, they get very happy. Some people might want that over money.
Well, that's the point.
That they did a good job.
Exactly.
I mean, I want them to have both, get the money and the acknowledgement. But I've done courses that we practice doing acknowledgement because no one does it. So you got to think about it. You got to think about what they would like to hear. It's not about what you hear. It's what would they like to be acknowledged. Sometimes I've asked, for my public speaking, at the end we had acknowledgement, and they went in front of the room, and we asked them, "What do you want to be acknowledged for?" And they said, "I would like that I changed, whatever." So that's even better. Instead of giving an acknowledgement, ask them what they want to be acknowledged for. I think that helps even more. It's personal. Listen to them, and people blush and smile and get very happy when you do that. Does that make sense to you?
I think it's brilliant because if we're going to create a culture of meaningful work that's profound, that protects the planet, that empowers people and communities and is fun to do, it starts with giving talent the reward tracks that they want and will most appreciate. And I think what will really blow the minds of a lot of hiring managers is they're not all financially related. They're not all title related.
Right.
I'll give you.
It's personal. It's personal. Like, it's personal. You gave me my days off. It's personal. You gave me money. Personally, you let me go on vacation. I don't know. It's personal. That feels like love. Nurturing is like love. Doing things like that, I'm sure corporations don't like this, but it's like love. Like, if you know what they need and you give them what they need, that's love.
It's also good business practice. If you're hiring somebody to do a big job or a job that has a lot of inputs and outputs, if you've hired well and you've hired a smart person, and every indication that you've gotten from people that you've talked to about them, who work with them in the past, is they know how to get the job done. Well, for doggone it, give them the tools to get the job done well. So what that basically means is, like you just said, if something isn't working out and you're given the incentive of, well, if you work harder, we'll pay you more. Maybe one of the options needs to be, why don't I just ask you what you think the problem is and how we need to solve it? And what you might find out is,
right,
I got too much on my plate. I will forego a year's worth of salary increase if maybe you bring somebody on to
have support.
To support me.
They would give me a project,
yeah,
and I thought it was like I was a hero. I had to do the whole thing by myself, and it was horrible. I never thought about, can I have other people come and work with me? No, it was all about, that's Gen X again. Yeah. We're like solo people. Go, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I had the situation early in my career whereby I got into something that was way bigger than my hiring manager or my department thought they had created. And this was so over my head that there weren't enough hours in the day for me to manage this properly. And I was also really young. I didn't have the experience, and I didn't really know to say no.
Right.
So stoically, I took on the responsibility. And guess what? And guess what happened, Nicole? My boss's boss and my boss's boss's boss would see that my car was the first one in the parking lot when they arrived.
Oh, no.
And the last one there when they left. So what did they think?
Oh, no.
Dan is doing a hell of a job. Let's take care of him. Give him an increase in his salary. Meantime, no one's talking to me. My mental health is suffering. I don't know enough to say no mas. Stop it already. I need a person to help me.
I feel like we couldn't think we could do that. That's how I felt. I mean, maybe because I was young, or maybe the climate. I felt like couldn't go. I don't know how you felt. Did you think about bringing someone else? Did you want to? Did you?
Yes, I did. And this was the kicker when I said I want to talk to you about getting me some help. I don't care how you do it. I'll split it with somebody. Or I just have too much on my plate. I need somebody to take the load off my shoulders. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really for
to talk to someone about the project.
Yeah.
It's good to talk to people and get new ideas. All these, I know what's going to happen now. Everyone's going to park their car out of their office and leave it there all day. I'm just making a joke. Like, your car was over there, so like, wow, let's give him more money. He's doing all this work.
So
like,
what?
Let's just park our car there.
So what I just described, actually happened to me, and my boss said, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but my boss wants to give you a bump, and we'll worry about getting you people later." In the meantime, I'm thinking to myself, okay, all right.
But in your heart, what did you really want? If you could get the money or the help, what would you choose?
I wanted my mental health. I wanted to know that I was doing a good job and not killing myself doing it.
Right.
I wasn't even thinking about the money, because you want to know something? And this is the other cautionary tale of the old economy, upward mobility. Yeah, I got a nice increase as a 27, 28, 29-year-old dude. I was making a lot of money, and I was spending it like crazy. And then my wife and I bought a house. It was an old house. We had to do renovation to it and buy stuff. I never had anything left over. I was racking up credit card debt.
Wow.
It was a vicious cycle built on not being nurtured, I really believe, because and I don't blame my boss, my immediate boss for it. He's a really good guy. We still talk.
You were hurting yourself instead of nurturing. You were like, take it on the head, all the hours, the money, spend it, got credit, like got debt, got like, that's kind of hurting yourself in a way, not nurturing. How about not nurturing yourself?
It was corporatized masochism. Yeah. I can't even talk today.
That's perfect.
Yeah, masochism.
Okay.
There you go. I really hope we've come a long way from that. I haven't been in a corporate job in over 25 years. I recognized I did not have the stuff to do it anymore. And that's why I became an entrepreneur in the mid-90s. And I'm glad that I did, because I would not have thrived in a corporate environment given the deleterious experiences that I had early on in my corporate career.
Right. Do you consider yourself a left brain or a right brain? I mean, some people don't believe in that, but I kind of do. Like, what are you, left or right?
Describe for our audience first. Before I answer that, describe for our audience first what each of those means.
The left brain is kind of like very analytical, short-sighted. And I hate to say that, but short-sighted. Right brain, which I am, is super creative. I look for the outcome first and then figure it in. I have a lot of imagination. You need both. Like the right brain person creates the program. Like, let's do this. That's, something really interesting. The left brain we need because they have to do the work, like in step to get it going. Like sometimes right brains get these great ideas, but they can't execute.
Mm-hmm.
Left brains can execute, but they may go the wrong way because they don't know the outcome.
Right.
So you need both. You need someone to find the vision and the direction you're going and the inspiration, and then you need people who are practical and bring it to life. So what do you think? Are you in the middle? Are you left or right?
I've always felt I was weighted towards right brain. I'm not entirely in that camp, but weighted towards right brain, because why else would I have been attracted to work in advertising? I love being creative. I love solving problems.
Yeah, that's right brain. That's right brain. More companies are most left brain. I don't know.
And yet,
impersonal.
As an account guy, I had to be really left brain, which if so much of my day was sucked up being right brain and you only have a little bit left for left brain, you don't do the left brain stuff very well. That's another cautionary tale that we really cannot be that way anymore. I had a guy interview me for his podcast last week, and he asked if I could do anything over again. Would I do it over? And I went, hell no! Come on! If I had solved all my problems, I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now. It's true.
That's true.
It's true.
I did that too. When I was younger, I was like, oh, everything was horrible. Why did I go through that? And then as I get older, I'm like, oh, now I know. That's how I can be a coach. But I was like my 30s. I'm like, why is this stuff happening to me? This is not good. Like, this is terrible. And then a decade later, I'm like, oh, all that experience got me to here. And I can work with people now because I've gone through things. It's very funny. I wouldn't change it. I mean, I suffered, but I wouldn't change it because it gave me all the information and compassion and all that stuff. It's crazy. Like, if you talk to me in the 30s, I'd be really upset. And now I'm happy.
Now you're happy. And that's good that you're happy. Mm. And we need more of it. Nicole Rousseau, thank you so much for coming back on the Tightrope. This discussion about nurturing is really terrific. And to our listeners out there, especially if you're hiring managers and you are dealing with this new paradigm shift in people management, I want to hear from you. Reach out to me at info@dansmolen.com, because if you've got a really great story, we'll just bring you on the podcast. We'll talk to you. And oh, by the way, we'll bring Nicole on to talk to us too. Get a three-way conversation going on this. So seriously, if you are a hiring manager and you're trying to instill a culture of meaningful work in your organization, and what you're hearing is resonating about nurturing, or if you are already trying to do it, we do want to hear from you. So again, Nicole Rousseau, thank you so much. The Queen of the Millennials, as you're known. If somebody wanted to find you in social media, where would they find you?
Just go to URL queenofthemillennials.com. That's what it is. And thank you so much, Stan, for this conversation.
As always, thank you so much. Great to have you on, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
Our thanks go out to Nicole Rousseau for again walking the tightrope with us. Links to her social media are included in the show notes for this episode. On the tightrope, our success is your success, but we cannot build our community without your help and support. So if you haven't done so already, please join the Dan Smolen Experience to get our newsletter offering information, tips, and hacks to help you to succeed in doing meaningful work. To sign up, simply click the Subscribe to the Dan Smolen Experience newsletter button on our homepage at dansmolen.com. Fill out the short form, then click the subscribe button at the bottom of the page, and you'll be on your way. Also, become a regular listener of the Tightrope Podcast. You can easily find current and past episodes by keywording the Tightrope Podcast wherever you choose to listen. And please show your support on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can locate our social media buttons at the upper right corner of our web pages at dansmolen.com. From Washington, D.C., this is The Tightrope. I'm your host, Dan Smolen. And do remember this, our best days lie ahead. Have a great and successful week, everyone. Happy birthday, Mom.